So we're always seeing these spectacular rocket launches, right? Or these mind-blowing images beamed back from deep space. But how often do we actually stop and wonder how a nation builds a space agency from literally nothing? Well, in this explainer, we're going to take a fascinating journey back in time. We're diving into the incredible origins of India's space program, and more importantly, the absolute visionary who made the whole shebang possible.
Today, with the whole world celebrating India's lunar landings and these massive space triumphs, we really have to ask, who actually sparked this bold vision in the first place? I mean, when people proudly talk about Chandrayaan or Mangalyaan, we're looking at the ultimate result of a very specific dream. Who on earth had the sheer audacity to even talk about space exploration when India was facing, monumental challenges right here on the ground?
It's a massive paradox. Just think about it for a second. You have a newly independent nation in 1947, literally struggling for basic survival, contrasted against the multi-million-dollar space superpower it is today. Back then, the country was grappling with immense poverty and incredibly scarce resources. So understandably, most people figured a newly independent India should only focus on immediate necessities. Food, basic education, heavy industry. Space exploration? Honestly, that sounded like pure science fiction for a developing nation. But one man saw it completely differently. He realized that science wasn't just some luxury, it was the exact tool needed to leapfrog into the future. That man was Vikram Sarabhai.
So, Vikram Sarabhai was born into serious wealth in 1919 in Ahmedabad. He was surrounded by giants like Gandhi and Nehru, but his true inheritance? A fiercely curious scientific mind. His family home was basically a hub for the nation's greatest thinkers. He was that kid, the one, always asking why the sky is blue or exactly how big the universe is. He actually went off to study natural sciences at Cambridge, but then World War II broke out and forced him back to India. And that twist of fate was absolutely crucial, because he ended up working under the legendary Nobel laureate C.V. Raman, studying cosmic rays. This was really the crucible where his profound scientific journey took off.
Now here's where it gets really interesting. While the rest of the world viewed space as this massive race for global dominance, Sarabhai saw it strictly as an instrument to lift millions out of poverty. During the mid-20th century, the big superpowers were treating space like a military and political battleground. But Sarabhai? He had a totally unique, purely humanitarian vision. He realized that satellites could predict the weather for farmers who totally relied on the monsoon. He saw that space tech could literally beam educational broadcast into the most remote, impoverished villages. He definitely wasn't building rockets just to show off. He was building them to radically transform the everyday lives of his fellow citizens.
And in 1962, this completely audacious dream actually started taking shape. He founded INCOSPR. Now, the Indian National Committee for Space Research sounds like a grand, super well-funded government body, right? Well, it absolutely wasn't. It was basically just Sarabhai and a small, hyper-dedicated team of scientists armed with an impossible dream and essentially zero resources. They didn't have the billions of dollars other nations were pouring into their space agencies. No modern labs, no giant rockets. They had to rely entirely on grit, sheer brilliance, and this unshakable belief that they were doing something vital for their country's future.
You just have to picture the sheer improbability of their setup in Thumba, a tiny coastal village in Kerala. I mean, scientists were literally carting the future of space exploration on bicycles. They had zero modern facilities. Get this, an old local church was repurposed as their main control room. The bishop's house, that became their workshop. And because they didn't have proper transport vehicles, these brilliant physicists and engineers were strapping vital rocket components to the back of bicycles and just rolling them down to the launch pad. And for the heavier payloads, they used bullock carts. It's just a stunning contrast, isn't it? Ancient modes of transport literally carrying the cutting-edge technology that would eventually touch the stars. But against all those odds, on November 21, 1963, a tiny-sounding rocket pierced the sky. It sent a massive message. India was not going to be left behind. Sure, it was a modest beginning, just a sounding rocket for upper atmospheric research. But as that rocket roared upward from the beaches of Thumba, it carried the confidence of an entire nation right up with it. This wasn't just a science experiment anymore. It was a bold declaration. Sarabhai's dream wasn't just some theory discussed in drawing rooms. It was real fire and thrust climbing straight into the sky.
And those scrappy beachside experiments rapidly evolved into the institutional powerhouse we know today. By 1969, his tireless efforts culminated in the official birth of the Indian Space Research Organization, or ISRO. He had literally transformed a small committee working out of a church into a full-fledged national mission. But more importantly, he hardwired his original philosophy right into ISRO's very DNA, the rule that this technology absolutely must serve the common people.
Now, his genius wasn't just limited to the stars. He was a phenomenal multitasker. While he was building the space program from scratch, he was also heavily involved in India's atomic energy program. He fundamentally believed that science couldn't just stay locked away in pristine ivory tower laboratories. So he actively built institutions that bridge the gap between complex scientific research and practical industrial application. He wanted to make absolutely sure that the fruits of high-level innovation actually reach the everyday person.
But tragically, on a quiet December morning in 1971, India suddenly lost its greatest scientific visionary far, far too soon. He was working relentlessly, basically carrying the entire future of the space program on his shoulders when he passed away. He was only 52 years old. The entire nation was stunned. They had just lost the architect of their future. It's honestly heartbreaking to even think about what else he might have accomplished if he'd just been given more time.
Yet his dream absolutely refused to die. Every single time modern ISRO reaches new celestial heights today, it is Sarabhai's original vision taking flight. Because you see, he didn't just build rockets, he built a resilient culture with a deep sense of purpose. Today, when India successfully places a rover on the moon, or orbits Mars on its very first attempt, or sends probes to study the sun, the foundation for all those monumental achievements, it was laid by that tiny, scrappy team working out of a church in Thumbi. I want to leave you with this unforgettable thought as we wrap up this explainer. A journey that began on a humble bicycle ultimately carried a nation all the way to the moon. Vikram Sarabhai didn't just teach his country how to look up at the stars, he forged the actual path to reach them. So, the next time you see a massive rocket light up the night sky, maybe ask yourself, what impossible dreams are you carrying on your own bicycle today?